Snow fell silently over the village, covering the narrow streets in a blanket of cold white. The wind whispered through broken rooftops and empty doorways, carrying the faint smell of smoke and frost. Inside one small wooden house, a woman moved. Quickly, her thin cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Her name was Alara. Her eyes were dark with worry, and her hands shook slightly as she tried to carry enough firewood for her children. Her 2 sons, Arlen and Joran, huddled near the small hearth, their faces pale and stomachs empty. They had not eaten for 3 days. Each day had been harder than the last, and the fear of hunger weighed heavily on Alara's heart. She loved them more than life itself, but the village had little to offer. The fields were frozen, and the market was mostly bare. Alara glanced outside through the frost-covered window. A few villagers moved through the snow, carrying whatever small bundles they had. Their faces were weary, hollowed by the cruel grip of famine. She clutched her sons close, whispering to herself, "I will find something. I have to." Her eyes fell on a small shop at the edge of the market square. Its windows were fogged, and a faint golden light flickered from inside. She stepped out, the snow crunching under her worn boots. The children followed quietly, trusting her courage even as fear gnawed at their bellies. Inside the shop, there was little to see. A few sacks of grain sat on the shelves, and a jar of dried fruits rested near the counter. The shopkeeper, an old man with tired eyes, shook his head when she asked for food. "Nothing for free, my lady. Even a loaf of bread costs coins," he said, his voice rough but not unkind. Alara's heart sank. She dug into her pocket and found only one thing of value, her mother's ring, a silver band with a small sapphire. It had been her only gift from her mother, a reminder of love and protection. Now, she held it in her hand, trembling. If you buy me just enough for my children," she whispered, "I can give you this ring, please. They haven't eaten for 3 days." The shopkeeper looked at the ring, then at her pleading eyes. He hesitated, but before he could answer, a quiet voice interrupted. "You should not give such a treasure for bread." Alara turned. A man stood near the doorway, tall and cloaked, his face partially hidden by the hood. There was a strange calm in his presence, like a still lake in the middle of a storm. He moved closer, his boots silent on the wooden floor. Who are you?" she asked, wary but desperate. The man smiled faintly, not unkind, and spoke softly. "I am someone who has seen suffering like yours. Let me help." Alara's eyes narrowed. She had learned not to trust strangers, not even kind ones. "Why would you care? You don't even know us." "I care," he said simply, "because no child should go hungry." He stepped closer to the counter and handed a small pouch of coins to the shopkeeper. "Give her all the bread and grain she needs," he instructed. The shopkeeper obeyed, bowing slightly. Alara stared, stunned. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but words stuck in her throat. Instead, she took the food carefully, holding her children close as she counted it. Enough for days, more than she dared hope. The man watched silently, his eyes deep and unreadable. "You are brave," he said finally. "Not many would offer their last treasure for others, even their own family." Alara frowned. "It is not bravery. It is survival. And love. I do what I must for them." A shadow passed across his face. "I see that," he said. There was something in his voice, something heavy, almost sorrowful, that made her look at him differently. He was not like the other men in the village, not like the merchants who counted coins, or the soldiers who took what they wanted. There was strength, yes, but also something fragile, hidden. "I should go," she said, gathering the children. "Thank you, I suppose." She hesitated. "Do I know you?" "No," he said, but his eyes lingered. "Not yet." Alara stepped out into the snow, carrying the food. Her children followed, their faces lighting up for the first time in days. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, something that was not just relief but curiosity, and even a little fear. The man watched from the doorway, unmoving. Then, silently, he turned and disappeared into the windswept streets, leaving only a small token behind, a silver feather, delicate and cold. Ilara found it in the snow as she passed. She held it in her hand, puzzled. What was it? A warning? A gift? She did not know, but she felt that the man, this mysterious stranger, was not merely passing through her life. There was a weight in the air, a sense that something larger than hunger, larger than the village itself, had touched her. Night fell quickly, and the snow grew heavier. Ilara hurried home, carrying the food and shielding her children from the chill. By the time she reached the small cottage, her sons were shivering, their tiny hands red and numb. "Look, Arlen, Joran," she said, placing the bread and grain before them. "We have food tonight." Their eyes widened, hope shining through their exhaustion. For a moment the house felt warm, safe, as if the cold outside could not touch them. They ate quickly, their hunger gnawing, but the simple act of nourishment brought back laughter, soft and fragile like the first light of dawn. Ilara watched them, her heart swelling and breaking all at once. She was relieved, but she could not shake the feeling that the world beyond the village was dangerous, full of men who might take everything, full of secrets and shadows she could not see. And then she noticed movement outside the window. A shadow flickered across the snow, quick, silent, and deliberate. Someone, or something, was watching her cottage. Her stomach tightened. Hunger could be fought. But danger? Danger could take everything. She ran to the door and stepped outside, her sons following closely. The shadow was gone. Only the snow remained, cold and silent, as if it had swallowed the watcher whole. But the unease lingered. She glanced down at the silver feather in her hand. It seemed heavier now, a small talisman that carried more meaning than she could understand. "Who are you?" she whispered to the wind, knowing no answer would come. That night, Ilara sat by the hearth with her children, the bread between them and the snow pressing against the walls. She could not sleep. The stranger's eyes haunted her, soft, piercing, and full of something she could not name. She wondered if he was a man, or something more, something powerful, something dangerous. And she wondered, would he return so? The candle flickered and the wind howled through the cracks in the walls. A single thought gripped her heart. They were safe for now. But the world outside was not done with them. Hunger had passed, but something else had arrived. A shadow, a promise, a force she could not yet understand. And somewhere far away, in a castle of stone and fire, the man watched her still, unseen. His thoughts tangled with hers. He was not merely a stranger. He was a king in disguise, and he had seen her courage, her love, her fierce will to survive. But even kings cannot always protect what they desire. And in the distance, a dark figure moved toward the village, unseen, patient, waiting for the right moment. Ilara did not know it yet, but her life and the lives of her sons was about to change forever. The morning came gray and cold. Snow still blanketed the village, but the warmth of the hearth lingered in Ilara's small home. Her sons, Arlen and Joran, had eaten well the previous night, and for the first time in days their laughter filled the walls. Yet Ilara's heart remained heavy. The shadow she had seen at the market had not left her mind. She could not shake the feeling that something dangerous was watching her, waiting for the right moment. While she struggled with fear and hope, the stranger from the market moved through the halls of his own home, a vast stone castle on a hill that overlooked the kingdom. He was King Theron, though the world knew him only as a distant ruler, austere and powerful. In these empty corridors he was simply a man who had seen suffering too close to the heart. Theron had returned to the castle after his encounter with Ilara, but he could not forget her. There was a fierce honesty in her eyes, a courage born of desperation that had stirred something deep within him. He had witnessed hunger, grief, and determination in one fragile body, and it had struck him like a blade. The kingdom was cursed, though he had hidden the truth from his people. Famine and blight spread over the land, consequences of an ancient betrayal by a former queen who had stolen the sacred grain of the harvest god. The curse had taken years to weaken the lands, and Theron's advisors suggested harsh measures, taxes, rationing, and even relocating villagers. But he knew that no law could cure what was broken. He thought of Ilara and her sons huddled in their small cottage and felt a deep pull. Somehow she had become a symbol of everything he wanted to protect, even if it was impossible to reach her directly. Meanwhile, Ilara tried to resume life as best she could. She rationed the food the mysterious stranger had left and tended to her sons with tender care. She spoke little of the stranger to them, not knowing if they would understand, and fear lingered like a shadow over her thoughts. Each time snow drifted across the window, she imagined another shadow moving closer. Hunger could be fought, she reminded herself, but danger could not always be fought. A week passed and small miracles began to appear. Grain appeared at her doorstep in the dead of night, enough to fill a few baskets. She knew it was not the work of a merchant. The markings of enchantment were subtle but certain. Yet she did not know who was helping her or why. At the same time, Theron began to wander the kingdom in disguise more often. He moved through villages, listened to complaints, and watched the people he ruled. He saw pain, fear, and distrust, but he also saw resilience. The people were tired, but they had not given up. And somewhere in the middle of them, Ilara's courage shone brighter than the rest. Theron's secret acts of help continued. One evening, he placed a small vial of enchanted water near Ilara's door. It was said to heal illness and strengthen weak bodies. The next morning, her sons awoke stronger, their cheeks fuller, their eyes brighter. Ilara understood it was a gift from the stranger, though she did not know why he cared so deeply. Despite the kindness, fear lingered. The royal decree that she had seen weeks ago still haunted her thoughts. Her village was on the map for palace expansion. If the king truly knew of her family's struggle, why had he not acted openly? She did not know if she could trust him, yet she could not ignore the strange gifts and protections she had received. The wind carried a faint whisper one evening, the sound of hurried steps in the snow outside. Ilara grabbed her cloak, clutching her sons to her side. Shadows moved at the edge of the village. Her heart raced. Someone was there. The danger she had felt weeks ago had returned, closer and bolder. But before she could run, a figure appeared in the snow, cloaked and silent. It was the stranger. "Ilara," he said softly, "you should not be afraid." Who are you?" she asked, trembling. "Why do you care for us?" Theron hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "Because I can, and because you need help." His eyes lingered on her face, searching for something he could not name. "Your courage, your love for your sons, it calls to me in ways I cannot ignore." Ilara studied him, still cautious. "You are a stranger. You know nothing of what I endure." "I know enough," he said. "I have seen the curse upon this kingdom. I have seen what it can do to people like you." Her breath caught. "The curse?" she asked. "You mean this famine, this suffering?" He nodded. "It is old and powerful. Only those with knowledge and courage can break it." Ilara's mind whirled. "And you, are you one of them?" Theron's voice dropped, low and earnest. "I am a king, but I am also a man. I see what must be done, and yet I cannot act alone. The curse does not strike equally. It spares some and punishes others. I have helped you because I see your strength. But the rest is not yet safe." Her sons clung to her skirts, eyes wide. Arlen whispered, "Mother, is he going to hurt us?" "No, my little ones," she said, wrapping her arms around them. "He is here to help." Yet even as she spoke, doubt shadowed her heart. Who could she trust, and who was friend or foe? Theron looked down at the children and smiled faintly. "They are brave," he said, "just like their mother. You must protect them at all cost. The kingdom may demand sacrifices, but courage can save them." Days passed, and Theron's presence in the village became more deliberate. He did not reveal himself openly, but he left enchanted food, protection charms, and messages in code that only Ilara could understand. Their interactions became a silent bond. She did not know his face, only the kindness and care behind it. And yet each time she thought of him, her heart felt both lifted and weighed down by mystery. At the same time, danger began to grow. Strange figures moved through the shadows, whispering in corners of the village. Some villagers murmured about the king's decree, about the coming seizure of their homes. Fear spread, and Ilara realized she could no longer hide her family's vulnerability. One evening, she was walking through the forest near the edge of the village carrying water and supplies. Snow crunched beneath her boots. A shadow fell across the path. She froze. "You shouldn't be here," a voice said, calm but firm. Alara spun. It was the stranger. "You," she whispered, relief and fear mingling. "You came back. I am here to protect you," he said, "and to warn you. Your village is in danger." She stepped closer, her hands trembling. "Why do you care? Why me?" "Because you are not afraid," he said. "Not truly. You face hunger, danger, and despair, yet you rise every day. That is rare. And it matters. More than you know." Alara looked at him, the flickering light of the forest snow reflecting in her eyes. For the first time, she wondered if he was not just a stranger, but someone destined to change her life. "And what will happen if the danger comes?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "Then we will face it together." For a moment, the snow in the forest seemed to hold its breath. Alara felt something she had not felt in months. Hope mingled with fear, curiosity mingled with longing. She did not fully understand the stranger, and yet she felt bound to him in ways she could not explain. The wind rose suddenly, carrying the sound of footsteps in the snow, faint but certain. Danger was close. Theron stepped forward, protective and firm. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice low and commanding. Alara's heart raced. She clutched her sons. The snow seemed to grow darker, heavier, as if warning of what was coming. The village, her home, and her children were all vulnerable. "Who is it?" she whispered. Theron did not answer. His eyes scanned the forest. Shadows moved in the distance, and he knew the truth. This was no random threat. Someone or something was coming for her family. Someone who would stop at nothing. Alara felt fear claw at her heart. And yet, when she looked at Theron, she saw not just a stranger, but a force she could trust. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive this together. But outside the forest, the wind carried whispers of cruelty and vengeance. The danger was close, patient, and relentless, and the bond between the widow and the stranger, now hidden in the snow and shadows, was about to be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. The wind screamed across the village, carrying snow that stung the skin and made visibility nearly impossible. Inside her small cottage, Alara clutched her sons close, their small bodies trembling not only from cold but from the fear she could no longer hide. The shadowy figures she had sensed for days were real, and now they had come closer, moving deliberately through the forest toward her home. She heard the crunch of boots in the snow and stiffened. Her son's eyes widened, frozen with fear. "Mother, what is happening?" Arlen whispered. Alara took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She had survived hunger, cold, and despair. She would not fail her children now. "Stay close to me," she said firmly, wrapping her arms around them. "We will be safe. I promise." But she did not know how. A sudden flash of movement caught her eye. Theron stepped from the snowy trees, cloaked and imposing, yet somehow human in the kindness that touched his gaze. He had been following the threat, ensuring that Alara would not face it alone. "Theron," she gasped. Relief mixed with fear. "You came back." "I promised I would," he said, his voice calm but carrying authority. "And I will not leave until you and your sons are safe." The shadowy figures emerged from the trees, armed and silent. They were not villagers nor thieves. They were mercenaries, hired for unknown reasons, moving like wolves in the snow. Theron's eyes darkened. "Stay behind me," he ordered. Alara obeyed, her heart pounding. She watched him step forward, each movement deliberate, as if the very snow obeyed his presence. There was strength in him, yes, but also vulnerability. For all his power, he was a man capable of fear and pain, and yet, he stood between her and the danger without hesitation. The mercenaries advanced, and snow sprayed with the sound of movement. Theron's cloak whipped in the wind as he faced them, commanding the space with authority and confidence. Alara felt something stir in her chest, a strange combination of awe and longing. She had seen fear, despair, and now courage that seemed almost impossible. "Why are you here?" Theron demanded. His voice rang through the forest, steady and firm. The lead mercenary did not answer. Instead, he raised his hand, and the others formed a circle around Theron and the cottage. They intended to force him back, to seize control, but they had not anticipated his skill. Theron moved swiftly, guiding the attackers with strategy rather than brute force. Each movement protected Alara and her children. He fought not only with skill but with purpose. Every strike, every step was meant to keep them safe. Alara's fear gave way to admiration, tinged with an emotion she could not yet name. He was dangerous and strong, yet he fought to protect, not to harm. And in that clarity she began to see him differently, not just as a stranger but as someone intertwined with her destiny. The fight ended as quickly as it began. The mercenaries were driven back into the trees, wounded but alive. Theron's chest heaved with exertion and snow clung to his cloak. He turned to Alara, eyes softened by concern. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said, though her voice trembled. "Thanks to you." He looked away for a moment as if conflicted. Then he returned his gaze to her. "Alara, there is something you must know. The curse on this kingdom, it does not only harm the land. It touches those who are most vulnerable, those who are most honest, most brave. That is why you were in danger." Alara swallowed hard. "And what can be done?" Theron took her hand, steadying her. "We can end it together, but it will not be easy. It will test courage, trust, and love. Are you willing?" Her heart skipped. She looked at her sons, their small hands clasped together, their eyes trusting. I am willing," she whispered, "if it means they are safe." "Then we begin," Theron said. They traveled into the mountains where the curse had its source, an ancient altar hidden beneath a cavern of ice. The air was bitter and the path treacherous. Each step tested their endurance, yet each step drew them closer to one another. Alara noticed the kindness in Theron's eyes, the way he adjusted his cloak around her when snow threatened to blind her, and the gentle patience he showed to her sons. The bond between them deepened silently, spoken without words, felt in shared glances and steady presence. Inside the cavern, the air shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Frost-coated symbols of an ancient magic decorated the walls. The curse's power pulsed here, cold and relentless. Theron approached the altar cautiously while Alara followed, clutching her sons tightly. "The curse," he said, "must be faced with truth. The past must be acknowledged, and the heart must be willing to act for love, not for fear." Alara nodded, though uncertainty gripped her. The altar seemed alive, reacting to their presence. The snow outside whispered like voices, urging caution, but she felt Theron's hand brush hers, steady, reassuring. She drew strength from him, and strength she had forgotten she possessed in the long days of hunger and struggle. The altar pulsed with light, and shadows twisted in the corners of the cavern. The ancient magic tested them, revealing fears, regrets, and insecurities. Theron's mind flashed with the burdens of a king, lives lost, decisions made that had caused suffering and loneliness heavier than stone. Alara's mind filled with memories of hunger, despair, and the constant fear of losing her sons. Yet together they faced the visions. Theron spoke softly, guiding her through the illusions. "Do not fight alone," he said. "We are stronger together." Alara looked into his eyes and saw more than a king. She saw a man capable of love, capable of sacrifice, capable of being as vulnerable as she had been. And in that moment, the emotional bond she had felt since the first meeting at the market became undeniable. She reached for him and their hands met, a gesture of trust, of shared strength, of something deeper than words. Finally, they approached the heart of the curse. A pulsating crystal, dark and cold, hovered above the altar. Its energy was heavy, oppressive, feeding on fear and hunger. Theron stepped forward, but the crystal resisted, lashing out with waves of cold that forced them to stumble. "You must offer more than courage," Theron said, turning to Alara. "You must offer hope, love, and sacrifice." Alara closed her eyes. She thought of her sons, their laughter, their lives. She thought of the people of the village, the kindness in their hearts despite suffering. And she thought of Theron, the stranger who had risked himself to protect them. "I offer all of it," she whispered, stepping forward. The crystal flared, energy swirling around them. Theron joined her, and together they extended their hands toward it. A wave of warmth burst from the crystal, melting the ice, breaking the curse. Light spread across the cavern, and the oppressive weight lifted. The kingdom's famine would end, the land would heal, and the village would be saved. Exhausted, Theron sank to one knee, snow clinging to his cloak. Alara knelt beside him, their hands still intertwined. Her sons hugged her tightly, eyes wide with wonder. The bond between them had survived trials, danger, and fear, and now it was stronger than ever. Theron looked at Alara, his voice low, tender. "You have not only saved your children, but the kingdom itself. You have shown strength, courage, and love beyond measure." Alara's eyes filled with tears. We did it together. You helped me. You believed in me when I almost gave up? He smiled softly, brushing a strand of snow from her hair. And I will continue to believe in you, always. The cavern was silent except for their breathing and the soft whispers of melting ice. Outside, the village and kingdom would awaken to a new day, free from famine and fear. But in that quiet moment, only the three of them existed. Theron, the king in disguise, Alara, the widow of courage, and the bond they had forged in the shadow of despair. Alara looked at Theron, and something unspoken passed between them. A recognition that their lives were forever intertwined, not only by circumstance but by choice and love. As they emerged from the mountains, snow melting beneath their feet, the village stretched before them, untouched by hunger, safe once more. Children played, and the smell of bread and warmth drifted through the streets. Arlen and Joran ran to the fields, laughing and free. Theron watched them, then turned to Alara. "You have brought hope," he said quietly. "Not just for your sons, but for all of us, and I cannot imagine a future without you by my side." Ilara's heart raced. She had feared so much, loss, hunger, danger, but now she understood that courage and love could endure anything. "And I cannot imagine it without you either," she whispered. For the first time, they allowed themselves a moment of peace, knowing that trials had tested them, danger had pressed upon them, and yet they had emerged stronger, united. But as they stood on the hill overlooking the village, a faint shadow flickered in the distance, a whisper of the past not fully silenced. They knew the kingdom was free, but the world would always hold challenges, and love, trust, and courage would remain the only true shields against what might come next. And for now, that was enough.